This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not even upset. Like, I know some of y'all might be furious, have worked yourself into a rage or angry. And look, I'm not happy with the status of this team. I'm not trying to come away with some weak moral victory for a team being 1-5 when we expected them to be 5-1. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm just so unsurprised by the shenanigans of the 2024 Cleveland Browns. Like, they can't surprise me anymore. I've seen them do this. Look, they got a lot of problems going on, especially on the offensive end. I will say this, defensively, I thought that they put a good game together. Did they have some bad moments defensively? Sure. Did they have some bad plays defensively? Sure. Could you sit here and nitpick about like a Greg Newsome coverage moment here or there? Yes, Greg Newsome was not great in coverage in this game, and Martin Emerson got mossed by A.J. Brown. Both of our corners got mossed by A.J. Brown. But at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles only scored a measly 20 points. That's a very attainable score for a normal football team. But this team isn't normal. You know, early in this game, the Browns went down by 10 points. In my mind, instinctively, after watching this team for a month and a half, went to blowout mode. You know, at the beginning of the season, when the Browns were down 10, I wasn't flinching. I was like, you know what? They're going to come back from that. They can come back from that. I have no faith from this team to be able to make up for a 10-point deficit. And they rewarded that lack of faith because you know how many points the offense scored today? 9. They scored 9 points. 9 points. Obviously, this offense sucks. There's a lot of reasons and a lot of different pieces to why this offense sucks. Usually, when an offense sucks, though, you look at the quarterback. I know a lot of people don't want to face that reality. You want me to blame a third-string guard who had to play center for the first time of his life for all of the problems of the $230 million quarterback. You want me to blame all these other things. And look, does Michael Dunn deserve some blame for how this game ended? Yes. Yes, Michael Dunn clearly did not have a good hold of this snap count thing, and that's between him, Joe Bitonio, Deshaun Watson, and the offensive staff. We're talking about Andy Dickerson, Ken Dorsey, Kevin Stefanski. All of those people have a hand in that pie for how that cadence went down, and clearly something was funky with the snap count pretty much all game because they got false starts pretty much all game. Jed Wills, like, egregious false start on one. I just could not believe he did that. And, like, maybe it was the snap count that made him do it. Maybe Jed just jumped because he was worried about getting beaten inside or some shit like that. I don't know. I was just reminded during stream that the Browns do have a backup center in there. Well, a backup center that started, they got injured, that you had to move a guard to play center in. I was like, yeah, that might have something to do with it. That makes sense that has something to do with it. Deshaun Watson in the first half of this game was bad. That throw that he missed to Jerry, not very good. That throw that he missed to Jerry Jeudy is what it is. We've seen this half of football from Watson before. And even what he did in the second half, while it wasn't bad, like I thought Watson was like decent in the second half. I didn't think it was good, but he was decent in the second half. Even then, we've seen that from Watson before, where he's throwing some screens and he gets a couple of throws here or there. I didn't see advanced level quarterback play from Watson in this game. I saw it from like Jalen Hurts at times, and Jalen Hurts didn't play good in this game either. But from Deshaun Watson, I don't think I saw like advanced level quarterback play. It just is what it is. He's not very good anymore. We can fight it. Hope he finds the fountain of youth or something like that, but it is what it is. I'm calling it. He's not very good anymore. And at this point, I want to see him get benched for diagnostic reasons, not even to save the season. The Browns are 1-5. Whatever their season ends up being, it ends up being. We are now at the point as Browns fans where we don't really got expectations for this team. The reason this game probably didn't hurt me and maybe didn't hurt you as much as other games have, because you probably didn't expect the Browns to win this week. So if they would have won, it would have been a nice surprise. But you kind of came in knowing that, this team, they're 1-4. They're going to do what 1-4 teams do. And the Browns are now 1-5. And they look like a 1-5 team. They look like a team that doesn't know how to capitalize on a moment. They look like a team that doesn't know how to win. They look lost. Offensively, let's get away from some of the quarterback stuff, because I've said my piece about where I feel like Deshaun Watson is and what they should do with him. But let's talk about the offensive stuff, right? The schematic stuff that people are talking about, the coaching stuff, the Kevin Stefanski, the Ken Dorsey stuff. When I watch this offense, it does not feel like I'm watching a offense. It feels like I'm watching two offenses. There's what Ken Dorsey likes to do, the bunch stuff, the shotgun stuff, the stuff that's clearly different than what Kevin ran the last few years. And then there's the Kevin Stefanski stuff. And some drives, it feels like we're running the Kevin plays. Some drives, it feels like we're running the Ken Dorsey plays. It feels like there's two offenses in one playbook right now. It's unacceptable. Yes, the quarterback stinks. Yes, the quarterback wasn't going to execute any of this good anyways. I get that. But also don't think we're putting everybody in a position to succeed right now. Like, I just cannot be convinced of that just because of how wonky the offense looks at times. Like, it doesn't have an identity because I don't think this is anybody's offense. I don't think this is Ken Dorsey's offense, nor do I think this is Kevin Stefanski's offense. This is some bastard child offense that they're trying to push two playbooks together and call it one. We need to have an identity here. Either Ken Dorsey is here to help elevate what Kevin Stefanski does, or Kevin Stefanski is here to help ground what Ken Dorsey does. But right now, it's like, here's the Kevin offense, here's the Ken Dorsey offense. Let's jam these two together and see what happens. Part of the reason I want Watson to get benched is because I can diagnose this a lot better when I'm not watching what is some of the worst quarterback play we've seen since 2011. And in this game, Watson was playing at a not all-time awful rate, in the second half at least, which meant that I could evaluate the offense a little bit, and I saw some problems with it. Mainly that problem. Why does it feel like we're running West Coast stuff some drives? Why does it feel like we're running Ken Dorsey's offense some drives? What is going on with that? Whose offense is this? Is this Kevin's offense? Is it Ken's offense? You would assume Kevin's calling the play, so this has more of his imprint on it. But when you look at this offense visually, it doesn't look like Kevin's offense at times. Whose offense is it? What is the philosophy that's guiding this whole thing? What is the identity of the plan of attack, not the execution itself? It has none. They gotta figure that shit out. And as long as Watson's in there, they're going to have a free pass to say, hey, it's just the quarterback's playing awful, and not have to figure that out. If it's somebody else in there, now all of a sudden that microscope turns to you. So I know Watson's probably going to have to be out the paint. You're going to bench him. Probably gonna have to pay him to stay home for a little while. That is what it is. I'm done with the Watson experiment. I think a lot of people in Cleveland are done with the Watson experiment. I could care less about if it goes on longer or not. What I care about now is like, okay, now let's diagnose the other problems. Like, how serious is this whole Ken Dorsey, Kevin thing? Does one of them got to go? Is it Ken Dorsey that has to go? It's more likely going to be Ken Dorsey that has to go. Kevin has the more impressive resume and track record. So is Ken not the right guy for this job? Or is it something smaller? Is it a position coach just wrong? We can't diagnose these problems right now, but we know that there's problems there. Offensive line-wise, injury-wise, like, I think I'm at the points where I'm like, what is going on with these injuries? We get way too many injuries. Soft tissue injuries. It's just weird. I don't understand what's going on here with the injuries. Something has to be addressed. Probably going to have to move on from your training staff at this point. Like, you can't have 2 years where you're this injured, where your injury report always looks like how the Browns' injury report has looked. And then because our injury report looks like that, we don't practice that hard during training camp. And I think this is all just having a trickle-down effect. It's all just having a trickle-down effect. Because now, like, because you're not practicing as much, you're not as physical, you're not tackling as well. Because you're not tackling as well, you're leaning on the offense to score points. And because the offense is not scoring points, everything's kind of crumbling apart. But let's talk about this game and let's get into some individual efforts so we can kind of break down what I liked and did not like from this game. Individually, we'll start with the defense because I don't feel like being furious right now. Ronnie McLeod, I thought he played pretty well in this game. JOK showed up. Myles Garrett was incredible in this game. Look, he had one of those moments where you remember that the Browns should never, ever, 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 ever consider trading Myles Garrett ever. Okay? Because he is one of the best players to ever wear that uniform. And if you want to rebuild, you need some veterans in that locker room. You need some playmakers in that locker room. You need some good players in that locker room to make sure that you still have somewhat of a culture there. And Myles Garrett is a huge part of that. So, yeah, anybody suggesting that they should trade Myles Garrett, there's not enough draft picks in the world. That player is all world. We're not doing anything with that. I thought the defense played a lot better. I thought it was interesting that they played a lot better when Maurice Hurst and Michael Hall came back. I thought Maurice Hurst played a really good game here. I think he had limited snaps. I don't think he played a ton of snaps, but I like the rotation interior for this defensive line a lot better when it's going between Shelby Harris, Maurice Hurst, Michael Hall, and Dalvin Tomlinson. When it's those four in the rotation, I think that's a much stronger interior defensive line. They weren't amazing in run defense. Philadelphia still was able to run the rock pretty well on them. 36 carries, 116 yards. They only did average 3.2 per carry, which is good. Saquon, they got him down to 18 carries, 47 yards. So actually, you know what? The Browns did do a good job of defending the run for the first time all season against a good run team. And I think that has a lot to do with how healthy they were in the interior and that they weren't playing Quentin Jefferson anymore. I talked about this way back in the preseason. I've done multiple film breakdowns where I've pointed this out with Quentin Jefferson. He's horrible in the run game. He's like a liability in the run game, and just getting him off the field was, I think, a net positive for this team. And then you replace those snaps with Maurice Hurst, who I do think is playing well. Mahmoud Diabate, I'm going to be honest with you, I'll wait for the tape to really like have a full judgment on how he played in this game. But I'm going to be real with you. From what I saw cursory from watching the broadcast, I don't think he played well at all, like even remotely close to well at all. JOK, again, he was fine. Devin Bush stinks. And like he was playing good football for a couple of weeks, but now he's starting to look like Devin Bush again. There's a couple missed tackles and misplays that he had. There was a 3rd and 1 with there was a 3rd-and-1 with Jalen Hurts that he just completely whiffed on. And this is the second week in a row where he's whiffed on something like that. It's getting get him off the field territory, but I don't know if they have anybody to take him off the field with. If that's the case, they need to sign somebody in free agency. Well, not free agency, but off the street to see if they can fill that role, because Devin Bush is playing some bad football right now. Let's talk about the Browns offense. I thought there was some promise here with the run game. Pierre Strong, got to give him credit where credit's due. He was really good in this game. He was one of the Browns' most effective players, period, right? Like, you can almost make the argument that Pierre Strong kind of carried the offense in the late part of this game. He had 2 big receptions for 35 yards, averaged 17 on both of those, and 8 carries for 43 yards, 5.4 a carry, and he really only played in the later half of this game. I've been really tough on Pierre Strong because he doesn't have any contact balance, but his explosiveness was well in play today, and I think he did a great job of utilizing it against this Philadelphia Eagles defense. So shout out to Pierre Strong. I thought he was the best player on offense this week. I'll give him that award. Obviously, Myles Garrett was the best player on defense here. If we look at the receivers, Amari Cooper, the stat line's not going to be crazy for him. He did have a drop in this game pretty early. It was on a mesh, and he didn't catch it cleanly. It was a high ball that Watson threw, but you still expect Amari to come down with it. If this were a situation where he didn't get the yak you would expect it, I would be like, yeah, it was a bad throw. But this was still within the range of catchability. They didn't really utilize David Njoku too much, and I'm starting to be worried about I'm starting to be concerned that Ken Dorsey and Kevin don't know how to utilize what they want to do with how they want to integrate David Njoku into that. Maybe he was on a snap count or something still, but I thought there was a criminal lack of David Njoku in this game and him used in any meaningful way. It just seemed like they tried to get on the ball real gimmicky, and I didn't love that from Kevin today. Kevin was real up and down today as a play caller as well. There were some drives where Kevin was in his bag and he was cooking and he was calling up some great plays for this team. There were some drives where the play calling choices left me a bit confused at why you would even want to do that. Like, it almost feels like him and Ken Dorsey are trading the book every other drive sometimes, because sometimes the Browns will come out and they'll run a lot of under center stuff, a lot of 12 personnel stuff, a lot of like they'll run the ball, do a lot of stuff that we've seen Kevin like to do in that West Coast offense. And then there are other drives where they're doing a ton of orbit screens, they're doing a ton of bunch. Like, I don't know what to make of that. It just, the Browns offense right now, it doesn't feel like they're running one offense. That's the thing with it. They don't feel like they're running one offense. And I think that's a big problem with this team and with whatever it is that Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey are trying to cook up here, because it's one thing to not have an identity because you're not executing. And I think that's part of why they don't have an identity. They're executing like absolute garbage, especially through the pass game, especially at the quarterback position. But I think also when you look at Kevin and Ken and how this offense is kind of constructed, it does feel like there are 2 offenses in this one playbook. And I don't love that. About what the Browns are doing here. Jerry Jeudy really underused in this game. I think they went away from him far too much. He only had 3 targets. There was one play where he could have probably had a touchdown if Deshaun threw a better ball there to him, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And also, fortunately, it wasn't an interception. So it is what it is there. Yet they got to figure out what they're doing on offense. They got to figure out what the philosophy is on offense, and they really just got to run one of these offenses, because it does feel like they're running 2 of them. Let's see what else here before we get to Deshaun Watson. Jerome Ford barely played in this game. Same with Cedric Tillman. Deontay Foreman was fine, not anything spectacular, but he was fine. All right, let's talk about Deshaun Watson. He was 16 of 23. 168 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers. And also, I think in the second half of this game, he went on a 10 for 10 streak here. A lot of those are screens, to be fair, but he was significantly less bad in the second half of this game than he was in the first half. And I would argue the last drive he had, he was actually like decent in that drive. Unfortunately, that drive got derailed by a bunch of penalties and stuff. There was the false start penalties that happened, the face mask penalty by Amari Cooper, and that really put a damper in things. Does this change how I feel about Deshaun Watson? No, I don't think this performance is going to change anybody's mind about Deshaun Watson. If you had issues with him, all the things that he's had issues with has popped up in this game. The indecisiveness, the inability to maneuver the pocket, the inaccuracy, all this stuff that people are tired of with Deshaun Watson and how this offense looks. It's still there, right? Up until the fourth quarter of this game, the Browns did not have a single first down on third down. So a third down conversion, my bad, in this game. So it just goes to tell you what this offense looked like for most of this game, which is what the Browns offenses look like, which is also what Deshaun has looked like. Now, I thought they did a better job, obviously, in those last two drives where they were able to put together scoring drives, right? Like they got a field goal all the way down to what yard line did they get to? They got to the Philly 31, and then they got another one all the way down to the Philly 13. It doesn't make me feel great that I only feel like the Browns can score if they're close enough to run it into the end zone. Like, I really wish I had some confidence that the Browns would be able to throw a touchdown pass, but that's just where we're at with the Browns offense here, right? They're just not very good. We know the quarterback has a ton of problems. This game didn't do anything to make you think that he fixed a lot of those problems. He just played a better game than he did last week. But that's where the Browns are. The Browns are not going to have a great record this year. More than likely. Most 1-5 teams don't have great records this year. So this season isn't about having a great record anymore. Unfortunately, as much as that sucks, can't believe we're here. This season is about figuring out what needs to change during this offseason, getting clear answers about what needs to change during the offseason. Not by guessing, but by adding and taking out variables during the season to see, hey, what's wrong here? They got to figure that out. If Ken Dorsey's going to be the offensive coordinator here next year, him and Kevin got to figure out a way to make that offense somebody's offense. Because right now, I don't know whose offense that is. That is the Kevin Stefanski Dorsey offense. It stinks. Even if Deshaun weren't bad, I think this offense would be underperforming. Would it be underperforming to the point that the Browns are right now? No. Right? The Browns are underperforming and not scoring 20 points or not getting over 200 yards of passing offense because, in large part, Deshaun stinks. But even if that wasn't going on, I think this would still be an underwhelming offense. We expected this offense to be in the top 15. I think best case scenario with how they're running it right now, they'd be like 20th. Even if we're getting decent quarterback play, they'd be like 20th. Something needs to change there. I'm not saying anybody needs to get fired, but the process is obviously fucked up. Somebody needs to change that there. I want this team to be better. And you know what? I want to end this video on a bit of a positive note. I thought the defense for most of this game really showed a lot of heart. Like, the defense really fought to keep this game close. Like, for the first time this season, I felt this team have a will to win, at least on one side of the ball. And that will to win was from the defense. It felt like the Browns defense wanted to will this thing to victory. Unfortunately, they could not make it happen. And they didn't get the stop that they needed to give the offense an extra chance to make it happen. It's been such a year that's been deprived of any joy. And at least today, the defense gave me some joy. They gave me a moment to remember with the Myles Garrett block kick. And I really think the defense did everything they could to keep this Browns team in it. Look, the Philadelphia Eagles have a lot of really talented offensive players. The Browns were playing Denzel Ward on the snap count. That got taken advantage of. You cannot sit here and expect the Browns defense to have to hold every team they play under 10 points to win a game. That's just not going to happen. And right now, that's what the Browns offense is asking this team to do. It should be enough for a defense to hold a team to 20. It should be enough for a defense to do that. But right now, the offense almost demands, in order to win a game, that the Browns hold a team under 10 points while also getting a ton of possessions because the Browns offense is going 3 and out of 10. The problem is on offense, and it's about time they start going searching for the problem. We know Deshaun Watson's not playing well. Every metric tells you that. Your eyes tell you that. Let's bench him. I know that Kevin's not going to do it or not going to state that he's going to do it, right? I think he already went in his press conference and said he's not going to do it. But you need to bench him to see what the other problems are. And the longer we wait, the more we delay the inevitable. And I think that's honestly the through line to this game. This was the delay the inevitable bowl because Nick Sirianni is probably going to get fired sooner than later in Philadelphia. But this game bought him some time. Deshaun Watson's going to get benched sooner than later. But this week, you can't sit here and blame like 99% of the loss on him like last week. So he probably delays the inevitable a little bit. But that's where the Browns have been. I am exhausted because I have been traveling and been up on very little sleep. So if my energy seemed low today, it's not just because the Browns have bummed me out sufficiently. It's also because I've maybe had 2 hours of sleep in the last 48 hours. So I'm going to go to bed. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.